Hi guys, and welcome to this video on the full moon in Aries that happens on the 9th of October 2022. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. The chart you see next to me here, that's a snapshot of the sky at the moment this full moon is going to take place. So I'm going to analyze this chart, see what energy the planets create amongst themselves and how you can use that energy to your advantage. Now, this full moon happens at 21:54, so that's 9:54 in the evening, and that's based on Central European time. The sun and the moon are 180 degrees away from each other, so that is the full moon. So for me, the full moon represents a moment of completion and accomplishment for the moon. It's got this 28-day cycle. It's been waxing and waning, and it's been new and pitch black, and now it's completely illuminated. And to me, the full moon is a moment where the moon can say, oh, I can relax and let go, and I've completed this cycle and it's come to a natural conclusion, and now I can let go of all of this in order to create space for the future and for new energy to come in. And that is really, really empowering in itself. It's this moment of victory, right? Then the moon is in Aries, and Aries is a fire sign, but it's not just any fire sign, it's the first of the fire signs. So Aries is about my life purpose, and I've got my whole life in front of me. What am I going to do with it? So we've got all this energy of the full moon now asking you to channel it specifically into a particular area. And I think that's very important, because a moment ago I said with the Grand Cross that there's a tendency to be pushed and pulled in lots of different directions here. But the moon, your feelings in Aries, allows you to prioritize and to say, this is number one. So I think if anything gets problematic during the day, or you get a little bit lost or off track, immediately going back and just saying what feels most important to me right now and going with that is really helpful. The moon is at 16 degrees in Aries. 1 and 6 is 7. In numerology, 7 is the mind and creativity. So you can really brainstorm about what is most important to you, what your life purpose is all about, and what you want to do with your life. I mean, that sounds very grand and big and vast. But the moon in Aries really is about you are driving your own little vehicle. What direction are you going to drive it in? And what's interesting is that we've got Chiron sitting on top of it. Chiron is an asteroid that's known as the Wounded Healer. It's at 14 degrees in Aries here. 1 and 4 is 5, freedom. And Chiron in Aries on the moon says, listen, how do we free ourselves emotionally? How do we enjoy life and get a sense of anything is possible, and the self can be strengthened through good experience? So Chiron and the moon want you to go on this very personal adventure that allows you to get to know yourself and to realize how strong you are, and that ultimately teaches you how to avoid being hurt and feeling out of control, and to do things that give you a sense of accomplishment and safety. The sun is at 16 degrees in Libra. If the moon is what you feel, the sun is your conscious identity, what you'd like to become. And at 16 degrees in Libra, the sun is very glamorous and sparkly, and it's like an amazing host or hostess at a party. It's welcoming, it's personable, it's friendly, it's charming, it's fair, it listens and speaks, it's balanced, it's elegant. So, and 1 and 6 again, 7, creativity. Any artists and creative people out there, composers, sculptors, the creative drive is certainly there, and the ability to express yourself beautifully is very heightened. If you're a public figure, or if you're an actor or a newsreader or some sort of public persona, you're going to find that very easy to kind of deliver a message or to present yourself in a way that you're happy with and that works well with other people. And then we've got Venus sitting on top of it. Venus is the planet of love, beauty, and creativity. In the tarot, Venus is like the empress. It's the mother. It's having the love and the confidence to invest in something, to watch it grow, to see it flourish. Venus is at 13 degrees in Libra. And as well, that says you can create some work of art here that's really solid and that other people will look at and say, wow, that's amazing. And really, you're able to let your personality work for you, and you're able to really shine. Yeah, so if you have any kind of performance or speech or anything where you have to kind of impress other people, or you want to impress other people, if you can structure that in, do it here on the 9th of October. That's something that comes very easily. And at the back of my mind as I'm saying this is the key thing about this is to edit and to stay focused on one thing. And now I've mentioned the first other influence that may pull you away from your own adventure and finding things that are meaningful, namely other people, relationships, your ability to charm. So you may decide, you know what, my life purpose isn't that important to me. Today, I just want to let other people, spend time with other people and have a laugh and enjoy their company. So that's very doable. And of course, if that's your priority, you know, if that's your life purpose, to have these personal experiences with others, and that really what provides meaning in your life, then that's great and perfect and amazing. But for anyone painting and being creative then, or trying to do any work, that would bring things to a halt and would mean that you're not making a contribution, but also the whole creation process goes out the window because you're like, okay, I'm off to the beach with my friends. So it's something that only you can answer for yourself, whether is this a meaningful use of my time? Is this what I want to be doing? And it's important as part of my life purpose, or is this just a way to distract myself and to just blow off the day? And that kind of brings me to the Grand Cross, because the sun and the moon oppose each other, right? So that's the line that connects the moon and the sun. But then the Grand Cross forms around it. So the moon squares Black Moon Lilith in the first house in Cancer, near the ascendant. Then that squares the sun and Venus in Libra. And that then squares the part of fortune in Capricorn, which goes back to the moon. So the part of fortune and Black Moon Lilith, those are the other areas now that you may be pulled into that serve as a distraction so that you don't make progress. So Black Moon Lilith is at 19 degrees in Cancer. 1 and 9 is 10, that reduces to 1 in numerology. And Cancer is a cardinal sign, so very much aligned with the number 1, because it says it is my duty, my job, and in Cancer's case, to take care of the family and to make sure everyone is well taken care of and feels loved and there's a sense of home and structure. So Black Moon Lilith says, don't focus so much on your own life mission. Instead, spend the day taking care of other people's needs and issues. Don't make it about yourself. Part of fortune at 14 degrees says, in Capricorn says, listen, the only thing that's going to bring you freedom in life and the only thing that's going to be a meaningful purpose is if you work really hard and if you have an amazing career and you create financial independence for yourself. And that is really the answer to all your problems. So it's really interesting, you know, because the moon and Chiron in Aries are really earnest, and they're sitting there and they're saying, listen, how can I build a life for myself that feels empowering, where I'm not hurting all the time, where I'm strong and I can laugh and I feel safe enough to love and to open myself and to really have all these amazing experiences. And then it's almost like it reaches out and it says, do I do that through work? Maybe. Do I do that through relationships with other people? Or do I do that by being needed, like other people's caregiver or caretaker? I can't remember. Caregiver. So do I get a sense of fulfillment by just being there for everyone and helping them, even if they haven't asked? So it's so interesting to me. It seems like a very young person. So the moon in Aries here seems like the Page of Wands to me, because it seems like this very innocent question of, I want my life to mean something. How do I do it? And I don't think it's my response to that is, obviously, just making life about work isn't going to be satisfying in the long run. Just being a caregiver giver for other people also isn't going to work, because you'll be taken for granted, and then sooner or later you're going to say, well, what about me? Who's taking care of me? So that doesn't work either. Then, with the sun in Libra, the other thing that you may invest into for this sense of meaning is appearance and charm and charisma and the personality. So it's like almost putting on a front in order to have good relationships. So the solution to is the answer to having a good life, creating these amazing relationships, and I do them by looking good and having money and moving in the right circles and having a certain type of lifestyle. That's also not sustainable. If you have a certain type of lifestyle that gives you meaning, like let's say you go to, I don't know, somewhere trendy like the south of France in the summers, and you hang out with all your fancy friends on a yacht, right? And then one day you lose all your money. That lifestyle isn't going to continue, because without the bank balance, you can't go on the yacht. You can't afford that. So that's not sustainable, because this is about how can I live a life that's meaningful to me without any artifice. So ultimately, I feel the focus and the answer to all of this is discovering who the self is by listening to the inner voice. And that then opens you up to a multitude of things, because you're going to learn from your own experience and build a relationship with yourself and realize that you are the constant in your life, that you can rely on yourself. And that's the only relationship that ultimately it's important to be good with it, to be good with yourself. If you want to go in one direction and not tear yourself to pieces in the meantime. And then that opens you up to like a spiritual connection and getting to know yourself in that sense. So not just through your experience and through your physical being, but through your spiritual being and what happens there. So this, as you can see, is very complicated and it's very confusing, because the moon is a very feeling thing that says, hey, ultimately I just want to move ahead. But then you've got all these different directions. It's like, oh, well, what do I do? For, again, a lot of people, it's like, okay, I'll do nothing then because it's too much. And for a lot of people, it'll be very intimidating and it'll bring up some anxiety. I don't want to make a mistake. Perfectionism. What if I take the wrong move here? Oh, no. So ultimately, I think it's important to give yourself permission to make mistakes and to take the pressure off. Because the key thing about this is to explore and to get to know yourself. You can't get to know yourself if you're not doing anything. And if you're terrified, sitting in a corner saying, I'm not going to take any action in case something goes wrong. So decide to make a mistake deliberately, I feel, on this day. Because that's what actually allows you to laugh and to dissolve some of this pressure. Because this Grand Cross, it's like, oh, everything's so important. Like your choices are so big and meaningful. I mean, operating under that kind of expectation is like, it's like a burden. So I think the first thing to do is to say, okay, let's not be afraid of mistakes here. Let's do something that's fun and enjoyable. And it's better to move and gallop off in the wrong direction than it is to do nothing. I think that's important. Okay, so then the moon forms some other relationships with things. So first of all, with Chiron, I mentioned. Then the squares, I mentioned. It forms a quincunx with the south node at 14 degrees in Scorpio. So a quincunx is like this harmonious energy where two things blend together. And Scorpio, the south node, is like, remember where you come from emotionally and what a huge longing you have for freedom, and that there are aspects of the self which are problematic and which don't make you feel free. And the mission of this full moon in Aries is to work through some of you. Okay, I'm being very verbose, I'm sorry. The connection with the south node in Scorpio means that you're able to overcome some of your own personal issues that make you feel less than free in your own life. If you have a temper that's out of control, if you have addictions, if you have any kind of personality issue that makes you feel trapped in your own life, that's what this full moon in Aries is about with Chiron. It says, look at the things in yourself that you're not happy with and move to heal them. Start the journey to heal those things. You're not powerless over yourself. You're not a prisoner in your own life. You're free. So this is a full moon of taking your power back in the sense of I am fluid, I'm not fixed, I'm changeable, and I'm going to ensure that I change this inner environment so that I love living in it. That's it. Yes, I got it. Took me a while to get there, but I got it. Okay, so then we've got, what else have we got? We got a sextile, which means it's 60 degrees away from Saturn at 18 degrees in Aquarius. Saturn in Aquarius is very respectful about getting information and doing research. So Saturn in Aquarius allows you to be teachable, but it's at 18 degrees, 1 and 8 is 9, and 9 is the hermit. So you are willing to look at yourself and to be helpful to yourself, not to reject parts of yourself that you don't like, but to say, okay, this is all of me, these are the problematic parts, and I intend now to learn how to resolve these problematic parts of the self. And because it's Saturn in Aquarius, that can be done by going on the internet and doing a search, or a library, or anything that opens you up to the wisdom of others, or it can be going to the Akashic records, the spiritual library, through a spiritual practice by working with your guides and saying, what are the spiritual answers to all of this? So that willingness to learn and that availability of info, physical and spiritual, really puts you in an unusually amazing situation that you can actually once and for all overcome these things that make you feel trapped. The other thing with pressure, and this grand cross here in the middle, which I keep being drawn back to, when you put enough pressure on most things, sooner or later they crack and they break. And again, if you've been stuck in a loop, or you feel like you're going around in a cycle over and over and over again and nothing changes, this is where you can determine and say, I've had enough pain. I'm getting off this merry-go-round. I'm going to do it differently, and I'm willing to make mistakes, and I'm willing to learn a new way of living. Yeah, so anyone who has to do that, this really supports you. Anyone who's trying to leave behind an addiction, or, if you're facing a long period of physical therapy and you've got this whole journey ahead of you and you're scared whether you can do it or you're going to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes as long as you go on the journey and do it. That's the key. So anything else? Let me just double check. No. Okay, so what else have we got then that is jumping out of me? Jupiter and Neptune are near the moon, but they don't connect. And I'm getting the message that it's not so much about that. The only thing that Jupiter is doing at 1 degrees in Aries that is significant to me, it amplifies the fuel and the sense of power of the full moon, and it allows you, again, to focus it in one direction, which ideally, one that's important to you, or personal healing. Mars is at 22 degrees in Gemini. That's interesting. And it's all by itself over there. Mars is drive and what makes you feel empowered. In Gemini, it's really articulate and again charming and able to create solutions. And at 22, it's the master number of the builder. To me, that says the self is the solution to all your problems. So clean your own house and the whole neighborhood will look better instead of painting other people's. Wow. Mercury is in Virgo, 28 degrees, it's direct. Mercury is in office expert mode there. Mercury, if you need info, Mercury will deliver it to you. So trying out new things, like if there's an ongoing issue, like let's say you've been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. People do have that. Everyone is called a narcissist all the time, but I've never actually met someone who's admitted to having it. So there must be some people who have it. And if you're trying to work through that or improve, then that's the kind of thing if there's a new treatment, or if there's a different type of therapy, or if there's something, accessing that info is really easy, and you'll be able to try something new. And with this sense of I've had enough, it may be that finally is the solution that allows you to get off this endless cycle of repetition. Yeah, the key things just aren't to ignore all this prompt to do work on the self by working obsessively, or taking care of other people obsessively, or becoming overly obsessed with relationships or personal appearance. I think those are the big no-nos, and those are the things that pull you away from really being able to make personal progress. Yeah. Interesting, because a moon in Aries, it doesn't seem that thoughtful to me, usually. It seems much more about, okay, let's go, what's next? But this is about, let's resolve the inner stuff before we then zoom off into the world and do things. Let's just sort out home camp first before we sort out the entire world. So I like that. It seems really sensible, and the common sense to me says that works nicely. Okay, so that's what I got for you here during this full moon in Aries. I hope you have a lovely time. If you'd like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website. It's gregoryscott.com. On the front page, scroll down a bit until you get to a button that says book your reading. Click on that to order your reading with me. And in my personal readings, I use the astrology, numerology, and the tarot. I combine all three. And the chart next to me here, I draw up a chart like that for you specifically. So instead of taking the 9th of October in Central Europe, I take your date of birth, your time of birth, and your place of birth. And that then shows me what the planets look like at the moment of your birth. And then I analyze that chart in a similar way. And that tells me about your life purpose, vocational aptitudes, self, money, relationships, institutions, travel, education, anything at all. And I can also look at what's coming up in future by looking at your progress chart and your transits. And I also look at the astrocartography if there are questions around moving and what areas work for you and which ones don't. It's amazing. So if you have any questions like that, please do get in touch with me for a personal reading. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, please hit subscribe and share the video online. Have an amazing day here, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best.